When my daughter-in-law told me to leave, I smiled instead of crying. I don't know why. Maybe because I'd already cried too much in silence before that day. It was a quiet afternoon. No shouting, no anger. Just her voice, calm and polite, asking me to pack my things. "It's better for everyone," she said. And my son, my only son, stood beside her. He didn't say a word. He just looked down at the floor like a small boy caught doing something wrong. Except he was a grown man now. My boy. My pride. I wanted to ask him, "Do you really believe I've become a burden?" But my throat refused to let the words out. Instead, I folded my shawl, picked up my small suitcase, and walked out of the house I'd helped build. The home where I had once rocked him to sleep. The door closed behind me. It wasn't loud, but it felt final, like a chapter ending. As I walked away, the street seemed longer than ever. Every step echoed with memories. His laughter, his wedding day, the smell of his favorite food cooking in my kitchen. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew one thing. I would not curse them. Not her, not my son. Because love doesn't turn into hate that easily. It just learns to live quietly in the corners of the heart, waiting for a day it might be seen again. It started quietly, the way winter begins, with a single cold breeze that you almost ignore. But soon, the warmth in my home began to fade. Days turned into weeks, and small things began to change. Saba stopped calling me Ami G. She would say my name instead, almost too casually. When guests came, she introduced me as Amir's mother. Not her mother-in-law, not Ami G, just Amir's mother. A small thing, but it hurt. Meals became silent. Once the table used to echo with laughter, my son telling stories about work, me reminding him to eat slowly, Saba smiling. Now, the clinking of spoons felt louder than our words. I tried to start conversations. "How was your day, Beta?" Amir would nod, scrolling through his phone. "Busy, Ami." Just the usual. And Saba would add, "You know how office life is, Ami G. We hardly get time for ourselves." Her tone was polite, but it carried a wall I could not climb. That ourselves, I noticed it every time. It wasn't we as a family. It was we as a couple. And I was outside that circle. One Sunday afternoon, I heard Saba on the phone with her friend. She didn't know I was nearby. Her voice was light, but her words were sharp. She said, "It's difficult living with someone who doesn't understand privacy. She means well, but she's everywhere." She laughed softly. Her friend must have said something because she replied, "Yes, I told Amir, but he's too emotional. He won't say anything to her." I froze. I wasn't Ami in her story. I was someone who doesn't understand privacy. I didn't confront her. I just walked back to my room, closed the door quietly, and sat on the edge of my bed. I stared at the wall for a long time. Was I really interfering? Maybe I asked too many questions. Maybe I hovered too much. I began to doubt myself, the way victims of quiet cruelty often do. Amir began working late more often. When he returned, Saba would already have eaten. I would wait up, keeping his food warm. One night, he came home past midnight. I smiled, relieved. "You must be tired." "Sit, I'll heat the food," he said. "It's okay, Ami." "I already ate," I asked softly. "You could have called." I was waiting. He looked uncomfortable. "I didn't want to disturb you." He went to his room. I stood there staring at the untouched food, dal, roti, salad, all slowly going cold. I sat down and whispered to myself, he doesn't want to disturb me, but maybe he just didn't want to talk. The next morning, I overheard them again. Saba said, "She keeps waiting up every night. It makes me feel guilty." I told her not to, but she won't listen. And Amir replied, "She's always been like that. You'll get used to it. As if my love, my habit of caring, was now an inconvenience. That day, I took my sewing basket and sat in the courtyard. The sun was gentle, the wind was cool, but even in that peace, I felt like a stranger in my own home. One afternoon, I went into their room to tidy up. On the bedside table, I saw something, an envelope with my name on it. I hesitated, then opened it. It was a bank notice. My name was no longer listed as part of the house ownership. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. This was our home, my husband's savings, my years of effort. Why was my name removed? When Amir came home, I asked gently, "Beta, did you change something in the papers?" He looked startled. "What papers?" I showed him the letter. He frowned. "It's just a technical update." Don't worry, Saba stood behind him, arms crossed, silent but firm. Her eyes didn't waver. I wanted to ask more, but Amir's voice grew softer, like a man trying to end a discussion he didn't want to have. "Please, Ami, please. Maybe some distance will help." Those words echoed in my heart long after he left the room. Some distance will help. For the next few days, I felt invisible. They would talk softly behind closed doors. When I entered, they stopped. Then one morning, Saba said what I had been dreading. "Amiji, maybe you should visit your cousin for a while. Amir and I need some space." Her tone was gentle, practiced, like someone offering advice, not exile. Amir didn't meet my eyes. I said, "If you both want me to go, I will." Amir whispered, "It's not forever, Ami." Just until things calmed down, I nodded slowly. Yes, until things calmed down. That night, I packed my few clothes, my prayer mat, and an old photo of my husband holding Amir as a baby. I placed it on top of the bag, the only comfort I could take with me. Before I left, I stood in the doorway of the living room, the same place where I once welcomed them as newlyweds. Now the house felt different, quieter, colder. I whispered a prayer. "Ya Allah, keep my son safe. Let truth come to light one day." Amir came to the gate to see me off. He looked uncomfortable, guilt heavy in his eyes. "Call me when you reach, Ami," he said softly. I nodded. "I will, Beta." I wanted to hug him, but I didn't. Sometimes a mother's dignity is the last thing she can protect. I stepped into the taxi. Through the window, I saw him standing there, torn between love and confusion. And beside him, Saba stood, holding his arm gently, as if to remind him who he belonged to now. As the car moved away, my heart whispered a truth I didn't want to face. My son believed her lies, and I lost my home. The first few days at my cousin's house passed in silence. She tried to make me comfortable, gave me her room, made tea the way I liked it, but even kindness felt heavy. Every sound reminded me of my old home. The creak of the gate, the smell of breakfast, even the sound of slippers in the hallway. Everything whispered my son's name. At night, I would sit by the window, holding my phone, waiting for it to ring, but it rarely did. Amir sent a short message every few days. "Hope you're doing okay, Ami." No call, no voice, just a line on a screen. And I would reply, "Alhamdulillah, I'm fine, Beta." A lie that became a habit. One evening, my cousin said gently, "Sister, you can't live like this, half here, half there." I smiled. "It's only for a little while. They'll call me back soon." She looked at me the way mothers look at each other when they already know the truth but don't want to say it aloud. Days turned into weeks. The phone stayed silent. Even on my birthday, there was no call. I tried to distract myself, helped my cousin with chores, read the Quran, stitched clothes for her grandchildren. But my heart, it wandered back to that house, to that small kitchen window where I once watched the world with peace. One afternoon, I went to the market near my old neighborhood. I told myself it was just for fabric, yeah. But in truth, I wanted to see my home. From across the street, I saw the gate. Fresh paint, new nameplate. For a moment, I thought maybe they had moved. Then I saw Saba's car parked inside. I stood there quietly, hiding behind the shade of a tree, my dupatta pulled close. I saw Amir step out, helping Saba with shopping bags. They looked happy, normal, as if nothing had happened. And for the first time, anger touched me. Not loud, not fiery, but slow and bitter, like a lump of salt in my throat. I whispered to myself, "He doesn't miss me at all." But a mother's heart cannot stay angry for long. By the time I reached my cousin's house, anger had turned into ache again. A week later, the phone finally rang. It was Amir. My hands trembled as I answered. Ami, how are you? I'm fine, Beta. How are you both? We're good, he said. Then a pause. Saba's not feeling well these days. A lot of stress. She thinks you left upset. I took a slow breath. I didn't leave upset, Beta. I left because you asked me to. He was quiet. Then he said softly, maybe it was for the best. Things were tense, I asked. Do you think I lied about her? He hesitated. Ami, she said you didn't trust her. I wanted to say so many things. To tell him about all the small moments, the half-truths, the whispers. But I stopped. Sometimes the heart knows words won't fix what silence has already broken. So I just said, take care of her, Beta. And take care of yourself. He said, I will. And the line went dead. After that I cried, not loudly, not dramatically, just tears slipping quietly one after another. Because now I knew. I hadn't just lost my home. I had lost my place in his heart. Time passed. Winter arrived. I stopped waiting for their calls. My cousin's grandchildren became my small joy. They'd run to me shouting, Nanny, though I wasn't their grandmother. Their laughter softened my loneliness. But one evening, the phone rang again. This time,
it was my neighbor, the one who lived across from my old house. She said, Baji, I saw your son. He looked worried. There was some argument outside. My heart jumped. Argument? About what? She said, I don't know. He was shouting. Then I saw Saba leave in a taxi with suitcases. I thanked her, hung up, and sat still for a long moment. A part of me felt guilty for feeling hope. Another part whispered, maybe now he'll remember you. It was Amir. His voice was strained. Ami, can I come see you? My hands trembled. Of course, Beta. Come anytime within an hour. He was at the door. I opened it, and there he was, my grown boy, eyes red, shoulders heavy. He hugged me, and for the first time in months, I felt the warmth of my child again. He said softly, Ami, I made a mistake. I led him inside, poured him tea. He sat quietly, staring into the cup. Then he said, Saba left. She said she couldn't live under my mother's shadow, even though you weren't there. She said she was tired of pretending I stayed silent. He went on, Ami, I found out things. She told people lies, that you insulted her, that you cursed our marriage. None of it was true. Even her own friend told me. He looked up, eyes full of regret. I believed her, Ami. I believed every word. I felt my throat tighten. I wanted to comfort him, to say it was okay. But part of me was still wounded, not from anger, but from the memory of standing outside my own home with a suitcase in hand. He reached for my hand. Forgive me, Ami. Please. For a moment, I couldn't speak. Then I said quietly, Amir, a mother doesn't keep a record of her child's mistakes. She only prays he learns from them. He bowed his head and cried, softly, like the boy he once was. And I held him, stroking his. That night, after he fell asleep on the couch, I sat beside him and looked at his face in the faint light, the same face I had watched grow from a child into a man. And I realized something simple. Forgiveness wasn't a choice. It was freedom, for both of us. I could spend years carrying resentment, but what would it bring? Pain only grows when it is watered with anger, so I decided to let it go. When he woke up, I made him breakfast, parathas, eggs, and tea, just like old times. He smiled faintly. You remembered? I laughed softly. Mothers never forget. As he ate, he said, Ami, I don't know if Saba will come back, but I know I want you to come home. The word home hit me hard. Could I return to the same walls that had witnessed my pain? Yet when I looked at his eyes, tired, regretful, sincere, I saw the boy I had raised, not the man who had turned away. So I said, "If you truly want me there, Beta, I'll come." He nodded, tears glistening. "I do, Ami. I need my mother." We reached the house in the afternoon. The gate creaked open, and a rush of memories flooded in. The walls looked the same, yet different, as if time had left fingerprints everywhere. I stepped inside slowly, touching the wall near the doorway. "This house missed you," Amir said quietly. I smiled. "And I missed it." He helped me unpack my bag. For a while we didn't talk much, just moved quietly around the rooms, cleaning, airing out spaces that had gone cold. As the evening light filled the living room, he said, "Ami, I want to change things, make it right. Your name will be back on the house papers." I shook my head. "Keep it as it is, Beta. I don't need my name on paper. I just need my son in this home." He looked down, ashamed. I placed my hand on his cheek. "What matters is that you came back. The rest, Allah will handle." He told me everything, how the arguments had started, how Saba's insecurities grew, how he felt torn between two loves. He said, "I wanted peace, Ami. I thought keeping quiet would protect both of you, but silence can be cruel too." I nodded. "Yes, Beta. Sometimes silence becomes a lie." He asked softly, "Will you pray for her too?" I smiled. "Of course. She is still someone's daughter. May she find peace too. Because forgiveness is not only for those who deserve it. It is for those who once shared your home, your bread, your life." As days passed, the house began to feel alive again. Amir came home early, helped me with groceries, told me about work like he used to. Sometimes he'd say, "Ami, I can't believe how blind I was." I'd reply, "No one is blind forever, Beta." Some truths take time to see. One evening, he brought home an old photograph, our family from years ago. He said, "I want this on the wall again." I smiled, framing it carefully. It was as if we were building not just a home, but a new chapter. But even with joy returning, I often found myself awake at night, thinking of everything that had happened. Pain doesn't vanish when peace returns. It just learns to live quietly beside gratitude. I whispered a prayer of thanks. Then I said softly to the empty room, "Ya Allah, thank you for giving me back my son."
Outside, the moonlight fell across the window, silver and still. It felt like forgiveness itself, gentle, steady, and complete. After that night, silence became my closest companion. The house that once echoed with laughter and the sound of my son's footsteps now sat still, like an old photograph where everyone had walked away. For a few days, I wandered through those empty rooms, touching the walls, the curtains, the small things I had chosen years ago, every object carrying a memory that hurt to remember. Then, one morning, I folded my few clothes, wrapped my shawl around my shoulders, and walked out without looking back. There was no dramatic goodbye, no tears left in my eyes, only a quiet acceptance that sometimes love demands distance. I went to stay with my childhood friend, Nasreen. She lived in a small house near the edge of town, surrounded by trees and the kind of silence that doesn't hurt. When she saw me standing at her door, she didn't ask many questions. She simply said, "Come in, Appa. You look tired?" That night, as I sat by her kitchen stove with a cup of tea in my hands, I felt warmth again. Not just from the tea, but from kindness. It had been so long since someone looked at me without judgment. Nasreen didn't speak much, she just listened. Sometimes that's all we need. Not advice, not solutions, just a listener. Days turned into weeks. I found small ways to keep myself busy. Tending to her garden, helping her with her grandchildren, cooking meals. Every small act of usefulness stitched a tiny piece of my heart back together. But no matter how peaceful my surroundings became, there was always a quiet ache inside me. The ache of a mother who had lost her home, not to fate, but to misunderstanding. I often thought about my son. Did he eat well? Was she kind to him, even when she wasn't to me? Was he happy? Or did guilt ever visit his heart late at night, the way memories visited mine? I didn't want him to suffer. I only wanted him to see, to understand that love doesn't need sides, The truth eventually finds its voice, even through silence. One afternoon, while sitting in Nazreen's courtyard, I saw two sparrows fighting over a small piece of bread. They pushed, they pecked, until one finally flew away. But the one that stayed didn't eat either. It just stood there, looking around, perhaps realizing it had won nothing at all. I smiled faintly. It reminded me of us. Me, my son, and his wife. All that pride, all those words. And yet in the end, nobody truly won. Months passed, seasons changed. I stopped counting the days. One evening I sat by the window, watching the sun melt into the horizon, and something in me shifted. Maybe it was acceptance, maybe forgiveness, maybe both. I whispered softly to myself, he's still my son. No lie can change that. That night I prayed for him. Not the kind of prayer that asks for something in return, but a quiet prayer of surrender. Protect him, Ya Allah. Let him see truth in your time, not mine. And perhaps God was listening. A few weeks later, I heard a soft knock on the door. When I opened it, there he was, standing in the same shirt I had ironed for him months ago, but now wrinkled and tired. His eyes were red, his face thinner, his voice hesitant. Ami, he whispered. I froze. For a moment, I didn't know if it was real. Then, I saw it. The same little boy who used to run to me after school, the one who brought me broken toys and said, "Fix it, Ami." My lips trembled. I thought you forgot the way to your mother's house, I said quietly. He stepped forward, tears filling his eyes. I was wrong, Ami, he said. I believed her. I believed everything she said about you. He paused, swallowing hard. She told me you hated her, that you wanted to control everything. I thought I was protecting my family. I stayed silent. Sometimes words aren't needed. Silence says everything. Then he continued, voice shaking. She left, Ami. She took her things and went to her mother's. And before leaving, she told me, she said I'd lost the only person who ever truly loved me. He looked down. That's when I realized what I'd done. The room went quiet except for the sound of our breathing. He took a step closer and said, please forgive me, Ami. I don't deserve it, but I need it. I looked at him for a long time, at his tired eyes, his trembling hands. In that moment, I saw not a grown man, but the child I'd raised, the one who held my hand when he was afraid of thunder, the one who cried when he broke my bangles by mistake. How could a mother hold anger for her own child? I reached out and placed my hand on his cheek. It took courage to come here, I said softly. You already did what many never do. You came back. He broke down, falling to his knees, his head resting on my lap. Tears wet my clothes, but I didn't mind. For months I had cried alone. Now we cried together. We sat like that for a long time.